Hello everybody! Welcome back to another Worldedit tutorial. Today we are going to be building a tree with Worldedit. And I know what you're thinking. I've already done this. You've already taught me this, Gemini. Why are we here again? Well, I learned something new recently, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And what I learned is the curve command. So I'm super excited about this. It makes making branches on trees super duper easy. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is show it to you in-game in this view, because in time-lapse form, it's a little hard to see. So the first thing I need to do is do cell and then convex. Whoops, that's not how you spell it. Convex, like that. Now what this allows me to do is, it allows me to set more than one position. So I can set my first position as normal, and then I kind of connect the dots by right-clicking in order on each of these glass that I have set up here. You can see I set 6 positions. That's not something you can normally do, huh? Alright, so now I'm going to use the curve command, and this is what I use to create the branches on this tree. So I type //curve, and then my block, which in this case is 17, 12, and then I need a radius. Now, for the branches in this tutorial, I did not use a radius, so I get a line that looks something like this. But you can do it with a radius if you want. So if you want a radius of 3, you'll get a much thicker branch, and this could be useful for the trunk of the tree if you wanted to do that instead of spheres. It's really up to you. It has a lot of uses in organics, and I just love it. It makes things so much easier, and there's actually a lot less smoothing to do with the curve command as compared to the spheres. However, you will still have to do some smoothing. You really can't avoid it if you want a nicely shaped tree. Anyways, that's enough from me right here. Let's go into the time lapse. Okay guys, so to start off my tree, I'm going to be using a brush sphere with a radius of 2. I'm just marking out a simple little curve in my trunk and marking out some of those initial thicker branches and really getting them exactly where I want them. I'm using these spheres for this because it allows me to have a lot more accuracy with each click and a lot more control over what I'm doing in the tree, and I don't have to do trial and error with the curve command. I also use the spheres. I'm switching to a radius of 1 for this to mark out roots and some smaller branches. You want your branches to get smaller as you go up. Obviously your branches are eventually going to fade out into leaves, so you want to really make sure you get this effect across by going from larger branches to smaller branches and eventually down to little twigs. Now once I have everything initially marked out, I grab a block and just start smoothing. Now this is a process that you really cannot avoid no matter what you do. If you want a nice tree, you're going to have to do some hand smoothing and handwork. You can't really do it with all Worldedit and still have it look really, really nice. You can probably get a satisfactory tree with no handwork, but you're going to need some if you want a really nice tree. So here you can really see with the yellow what I'm doing with this trunk, kind of widening some areas, really trying to get a lot of curves into this trunk and into the branches. I'm obviously making the branches tinier at the ends, making them flow into the trunk correctly, really making sure that they're just curving the way that I want them to. Doing this by hand also gives me a lot of control. Once I'm happy with this section of branches, I begin with my curve command, just setting up my glass with the up 1 command in the shape that I want, and then selecting them with my brush and getting that curve. And you can see on this top down view how crazy curvy these branches are, and I just love the effect that these gives. It really looks like twigs, or as small as you can get, or as close as you can get to twigs in Minecraft, and I just love the way that looks. It really speeds up the tree making process quite a lot. Now when I was building this tree, I did it in sections. So I took 3 sections of branches and I smoothed them out 1 by 1 and then added the smaller branches with the curve command after I was done smoothing the section. And this really helped me keep me motivated during the process, because of course, if you're smoothing it all at once, you kind of get really tired of smoothing and you just want to add the small branches, and this kind of adds a balance to this. But the order of operations is not as important as the technique. So as long as you're doing it all correctly, you should get a similar result, whether or not you do the smoothing first or all at once or partially or whatever you want to do. It's really up to you. You can see I'm adding a lot of twisty branches. When I'm adding these branches, I'm trying to get them to go all in crazy different directions. If you look at a real tree, outside, you can see that the branches, I mean, for the most part on this type of tree that I'm doing, they're pointing upwards, but there are some that point downwards and horizontally and really twist around different things. And I really want to drive this effect across to make it more realistic of a tree. And I definitely think you can look at reference pictures for trees. I think it's not something a lot of people do. A lot of people just like think of a generic tree and try to build that, but you can definitely look up some reference pictures for trees and really try to build those. I love looking up old oak trees or bonsai trees. They're just so perfect for reference. So once all of my smoothing and branches are in, I replace this using the replace command and replacing them all the wool with logs, and then I start on my leaves. So for my leaves, I'm using a sphere with a radius of either 2 or 3, and I'm using mostly air in this brush. So I've got 80% air set up, and I'm doing this because I don't want my leaves to look like massive balls or massive spheres on this tree. That's not natural looking. So I want to use as much air as possible so I have a lot more control over the shape of these leaves. Now what I'm doing with the leaves is just setting them on the tip of each branch and then just kind of expanding it out. As I said earlier, you want the branches to look like they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then eventually you reach twigs. And of course the twigs are a little hard to get across with Minecraft blocks because of how large they are. So we're going to get that effect with the leaves by adding them in the pattern that we are using here on the tips of these smaller branches. Once I have them all where I want them, I just keep kind of molding and expanding them, getting the shapes that I want. I really spend a lot of time flying around the tree with a really high speed on and just looking at it from all different angles and really trying to make sure that I've gotten the shape that I want to have. Once I am happy with my tree, I'm going to go back in and just fix some of my mistakes here. And this is something that I should have done before adding the leaves, but it's never too late to just fix some of your smoothing errors. So that's what I'm doing here in this last clip. And that is it for my tree. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something from this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!